because he knew they'd be very hot button, and he even acknowledges it in his work. But he was a straight-on guy. If you see videos with him, we've got some in DVD, and there's some probably on the internet. But if you see him speak about this, he's genuine. He talks about how the CIA always picked him up and interrogated them, and what that process was. He talks about things that happened to him that were a little unfortunate, and other people have filled in how, things that happened to Wendell. But suffice it to say, I thought he was a stellar person. He was a great investigator. I think he also went off in some tangents with other stuff because he was a very trusting person. And maybe you could say, well, it's a double-edged sword. Did he trust too much in the Meier case? But there were so many other people involved in that investigation, and even subsequent independent work by Gary Kinder and the stuff I've been able to do and others.
I interviewed Gary.
Did you?
Yeah, I interviewed Gary about Ship of Gold, the other book he wrote.
Oh.
And I asked Gary about his first book, and he didn't really want to talk about it much.
No, he doesn't, because he's been harassed enormously. And the interesting thing, just a quick note about him, he has people like Michael Malin. Michael Malin, Mars, project, was it Mars? He's got this whole thing down in San Diego, and I've got it linked on the website. Malin came out basically supporting the authenticity of the Meier photos. But he and Kinder and others who were quoted at the time, they got some, a little pressure put on them. I mean, Gary Kinder, he had skeptics after him, and he probably had a few other people but he did a very smart thing that nobody can now dispute. He went to each of those people that he interviewed, and he had them read what he was going to publish, and he had them sign off so that the publisher wouldn't get sued. So Michael Malin and anybody else in there, Robert Post, Robert Nathan, all these people, they can't go back and say, we never said that. They signed off on it. And he
is a lawyer, so that was brilliant.
You know what? He did his bit, and if Gary Kinder wants to lay low on anything pertaining to Meier from here on, goodness gracious, I don't blame him for not wanting that heat. But he was brilliant to do that, and these people, they can't walk away from it. They know the case is real, and they don't want their funding to be tampered with and all the rest.
I understand. I totally understand that. And that's, by the way, how the climatologists feel across the earth. They don't want their funding cut, so they're going to go with the flow. Anything else you'd like to say about Wendell?
No, just that I found him to be just a good guy, a sweet man. And I knew him, in his 80s and all, and we interviewed him in the film. And he told the truth as he knew it. That was Wendell. He did not lie. He didn't fudge stuff. He respected Meier because of Meier's truthfulness. And that was a wonderful thing. And he spoke about that very openly.
The next question, and the last question of this segment, what is your primary concerns about the planet vis-a-vis Billy Meier's prophecies?
Yes. Well, as I say, my personal mission in life is, strangely enough, to help prove the prophecies wrong. I have to laugh about it after all we've spoken about. And what that means to me, having my recognizing early on, I'm not calling this an objective truth, but my recognizing early on that Meier's information about the environment was so important. I'll back it up and say in 1968, I co-wrote with some friends an animated episode called Captain Tim and the Little Pollutions about a space hero who went with his friends to try and solve an air pollution problem on another planet. We did this in New York City. I came out here, tried to sell it to Filmation, a big animation studio, and they told me, who cares about air pollution? That was 1970. So I've been very sensitive to this whole issue for a long time. I pioneered a lot of things in water purification in the 80s, whole other story. I've been into this. My first song in 1970 that I wrote when I got to L.A., We Are One with Brother River, Mother Earth and Sister Air, was about the environment. When I saw Meier's information, and the information he was being given, which is what I first saw, about the environment and what we were doing to it, and the threat to our lives, the people of Earth, and the coming time, what it would bring over the decades of time, that troubled me so much that I wanted to bring the information as a warning sign so that people would look into it and not buy the party line on, it doesn't matter what we do, it all goes away by itself. We don't even have to touch, global warming to talk about.
Totally understand. What are some other things along with the concern for the environment that are deeply concerning you?
Well, when back in the mid-'80s, when I was reading the material and they were warning from the 50s, he was being told about how fundamentalist religions were going to come to a head during the coming times, the new millennium was going to be bad and all. I was seeing that in the prophecies, what they were talking about is the things that were not inevitabilities, and there's a lot of talk about how people could change things and how we could put down wars and, insurrections and rebellions and terrorism and crime and all this stuff, how we could use non-toxic energy. I just read a thing the other day. Someone slipped to me, and I'm waiting till they get the translation out. Had the library at Alexandria not been burned, we're told here in the Meier material, by the church hadn't destroyed all this stuff, we would now be in about our 200th year of space travel because of the information that was destroyed from some of the early geniuses and other things that came, even probably from some ETs. We were set back so far, and we've been running on this polluting petroleum nonsense for so long. We're choking ourselves to death on all this. I joked to myself when I was 17 when I saw the exhaust coming out of the back of a bus in Chicago. I said, gee, the fossils are coming back to get us. How little did I know at that time that where my life would take me in terms of finding out just how true it was, even though it's not really fossils. But to answer this question, it's about the core thing of self-responsibility. I learned how to think from reading this material. I did not grow up as an academic, and I'm not claiming to be a genius. I grew up as a strictly right-brain creative guy, and by going through the Meier material, I started to understand and to think and to learn about logic and cause and effect and how things worked, even when I was being emotionally triggered by what I was reading because of my own beliefs.
Name a few specific concerns. The environment is one of them.
The environment is one. The fact that we are so polarized in belief systems. The other prophecy that really does bother me, which I think is a prediction, to be honest with you, and I've read it now in 2 separate tracts, is the United States will have 2 civil wars, one following upon the other, and it can't be helped but that the country will break up into 5 territories under various sectarian dictatorial rule. I read that in 86. When Meier first published it in 81, I laughed out loud. 2 civil wars coming to America? What have you been smoking? I am not laughing, and not at this point. And I think we see it clear as day. The precipitating factors are, of course, things like illegal immigration, but the scapegoating of people, which is not what is supposed to happen, is going to play a big factor here. The fact that the populace has been too impatient and stupid to understand the better part of what Obama is doing, and I didn't vote for him, by the way.
So you're concerned about the environment. You're concerned about what else?
I'm concerned about
not just you, actually, Billy Meier, from his predictions.
From his predictions, I'm concerned about the polarization of religions, the fact that these types of polarizations are bringing perhaps civil war to our country, more war on the earth, on the world. I'm very disturbed about his own information about a dark force of high-level banking and military people that move these agendas strictly for their own purposes, including the UFO agenda to further the arms race and stuff like that. I'm concerned about those things. I'm most concerned, though, that we come back to taking responsibility for ourselves, learning how to think.
Yep. Okay.
That's the core of it. And everything else would be getting straightened out with good education.
I want to thank you for being a guest today. Thank you for turning an hour into 2.
Oh, my goodness.
I think you have advanced energy technology from somewhere else to be able to do that. I'm amazed. Thank you, seriously, for sharing your time, your background, your work with Billy Meier's predictions, his story, and the important aspects of your work. Ladies and gentlemen, we have been talking to Michael Horn, who's the producer of The Silent Revolution of Truth. You can reach him at theyfly.com. Thank you again, and I look forward to you coming back. I'm going to be armed and ready for you next time.
Oh, please. Let's do it again and again.
I'm going to be armed with a lot of rain crystals.
Good.
Seriously, thank you so much.
My pleasure.